Welcome back to Teach Me to Be a Construction Estimator. This is episode 1, Invitations to Bid. Now, if you've not seen the introduction, I recommend you go back and go through the introduction. It's only about 15 minutes long, and I'll basically give you an idea of what your expectations for this course should be. This is a 10-episode course. We'll probably have a new episode out about every 2 weeks. If I can get them sooner, I will, but I'm a full-time estimator, so this is kind of doing this in my spare time. So, episode 1, Invitations to Bid. This is where it all starts. If you're already in the estimating game and already understand that, then I recommend kind of just fast forward and maybe we can give you some pointers or go to the next episode that is applicable to you. Invitations to Bid, otherwise known as ITB. That is how a general contractor or an owner will send you an invitation to bid. Back in the old days, it was a phone call, maybe a fax. These days, it's mostly, almost entirely done through email. That may be you may get an email directly from a client saying, hey, here's a plan as an attachment, please give me a price. He may send you a link to a file on his server or a Google Drive or some file sharing service like Dropbox or Box, or then there's a bunch of ones out there. He may share a plan through a service like PlanGrid or Procore. Anyways, it's all basically the same thing. They're sending you an invitation that they expect for you to respond to, whether you're interested in bidding this work, whether it's as a general contractor or, in my case, a subcontractor, a specialty contractor, and I'm a specialty contractor. My background is concrete demolition. Before that, it was structural concrete, and before that, it was site work. So, invitations to bid is basically a formal request to submit a price for services or goods. Usually in the construction business, it's the same package. Labor, material, haul, and equipment, that is what you're delivering. That's what you're giving them a price for. So the invitations to bid will normally come in through some kind of link or attachment on your email. So stop on that. 1, 2, 3. So basically, an invitation to bid is a formal request to submit a price for services. Sometimes there's materials in there. Sometimes it's labor only. It can be a lot of different things. But the idea is they've asked you for a price, and it's up to you to respond to whether you're going to bid that work. And we're going to get a lot more into that. So it used to be that invitations to bid was on a little strip of paper. It came from what we called Dodge Reports back then. Now it's Dodge Data and Analytics, I think. But Dodge Reports was a little strip of paper that came in advising you that a contractor or a owner, and the owner could be a government entity, was asking you to submit a price on a job. And here's their contact information if you're interested. And that's where it kind of stopped. There was no links. There was no computers back then. There was no plans. Just a little strip of paper that came in an envelope. A lot has changed from the 80s. And that now is that everything is digital. Used to be back in the day that if you got one of those strips, you would contact that client and say, okay, well, I'm interested. How do I get a set of plans? He might ship you a set of plans, or he may say, more likely, go down to this local reprographics firm. Reprographics are usually people that print large prints, have these huge printers, and go get you a set of blueprints. And you're going like, oh, I've heard that term blueprints. What is a blueprint? Well, back in the days, and we're talking back in the 80s and 90s naturally, and even before then, blueprints was a type of printed paper. Basically, these large format machines would use an ammonia-based solution to print out these large scale drawings. And we're talking 24 by 36, 30 by 42, things of that nature. And the color of the print was blue. It's because how the ammonia process worked, the transfer, it would print it out in blue and they would smell horrible. And you'd have a whole gigantic set of prints that smelled horrible in your office. Trust me, been there, done that. These days, it's all digital. Typically, you'll get the plans in the form of a PDF, which is a portable document file, something like that, which is very common. All computers can read PDFs that I'm aware of. And there's even software that can do things even more with PDFs, and we're going to get into that further into the course. But most drawings will come to you in some kind of digital format in PDF or sometimes as an AutoCAD format, which means you need AutoCAD or some kind of software that can display AutoCAD files. Some of your current on-screen takeoff software products can import AutoCAD files, and we'll get into that at the appropriate time. But now it's all digital. Now it's all going to come in to your email box, to your inbox. So what's that going to look like when it comes into your inbox? And I'll show you an example here. I think I've got one here. Yeah. I signed up for just a promo for ConstructConnect, and SmartBid is part of the ConstructConnect system. And we're going to talk about the big players in a second. But this is typically how an invitation to bid will come in. They'll basically give you the basics of what the job is, who is requesting this price, and contact information. And there may be some information in some of these screenshots that are blurred out because it is proprietary information and I don't have permission to show that. So if you see something blurred out, it's on purpose. It's not an accident. It's not a problem with the camera or the computer. So this is one I've not responded to. In fact, it's a company by the name of Archer Western, and they put out this. And the reason I'm showing this is a public bid, Georgia DOT, so it's public knowledge. There's nothing really proprietary in that. But I'm not going to give you phone numbers and people's names because they're not expecting you to call them unless you're getting this invitation. So basically, it boils down to how you respond to it. When it comes in, when you get an invitation to bid, you want to go through the details. And if it looks like something you're interested in, then you're going to go to the next level, which is usually looking at the plans online and maybe downloading the plans. And at some point, you're going to make a decision whether you want to quote this job, and that's where you respond. And you see on this particular one, they got it right up in front. Yes, I'm going to bid all codes. No, I won't bid this job. That seems kind of direct, doesn't it? And click here to view the project. Most times you're going to go click here to view the project. And most of these services work the same kind of way. They've got a place for you to look at the files and look at what is being asked for you to quote. So, yes, I'll bid all codes. Well, what codes are you asking me to bid? A lot of times they'll break down different things based on your discipline. If you're an electrical contractor, they may ask you to bid the civil electrical work with underground utilities. They may ask you to bid the in-building electrical work. They may ask you to build the electrical demolition if it's a renovation, for example. And they may have several check boxes, and you check the one you're interested in, or you can hit that button and say yes, and you're bidding all the codes. I rarely ever check yes, I'll bid all codes before looking at it. That's just be dumb. So know what you're doing before you get into it. But this is typically how an invitation comes in. This is one of those services. So let's talk about the services. This is through ConstructConnect, their smart bid system, which is a software product that they sell as a service to organize your bidding process and basically make it easier to get your notifications and send that in, including a service that gets you invitations to bid. So I would probably say that probably, I don't know, 60%, maybe more of the invitations to bid comes in through a bid service. About the other 40%, it's people I know in the industry sending me plans or links to plans, and then some just still send email. That's the way they like to do business. They may be a smaller contractor. They don't want to pay for these services, so they just send you the plans direct. But this is a growing trend. I think eventually it'll probably get to 90% of most invitations will be done through a service to you. And what are some of these services? Well, ConstructConnect, that owns SmartBid, is certainly one of them. And this is, let me move my screen over. This is a list you might see in what they call their bid center. Other people might call it a bid calendar. It's all the same thing. It just formatted. The interface looks a little different from software to software. But ConstructConnect is one of those services, whether you get the free version or you pay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to want to be in ConstructConnect because there's a certain amount of contractors that use this, and that's how you're going to communicate with them. So you'll get a list, very typical, and whether it be in a list like this or you look at it in a calendar where it actually shows what's going on certain days, this is what's controlling your day as a construction estimator, your invitations to bid. This is where you manage them. So this is just a list that they provided me. I'm not really been invited to any of these. This is just a promo that I asked to do, and this is the list they sent me. I'm not really bidding on any of these. This is not a real list that I'm using in my work, but it's a good example of what it's going to show you. Give you the project name, what's the status, whether you've assigned it, meaning if you assigned it to yourself or to another estimator. The location, the match is to a information you give them on the type of work you do and the area you work in. How good a match is it? So I really haven't given them any information. They know the area I'm in based on my me registering with them. But there again, when you actually get into doing this, you can fine tune this so it only shows the disciplines you're interested in. If you're an electrical contractor, you're only going to be interested in new or new work or maybe renovating old work in the electrical business. So you're looking for electrical work and you're looking for it in your area. And you get just that list for that area. And then, of course, it tells you when the bid date is and, of course, the company. And then you can go into that, click down, and you can click through until you actually get to the plans and specifications and start viewing that. And that's usually where you're deciding whether you're going to bid something after you've viewed not only their description, because right away they may say, oh, this is a new building. Well, guess what? I only work in renovated buildings. Well, not personally. But let's say you only do renovations. Well, you don't care about new construction. That's not what you do. So off your list. Thank you, not bidding it. So another one of and probably the biggest in the business, in my opinion, is Building Connected. Now, Building Connected is owned by AutoCAD, and that's how they got so big, I think. AutoCAD has basically an inside straight with the engineers and architects nationwide. I mean, they are the number one design service used for making plans, blueprints, for example. That's what they do, and they've came up with a service for these GCs. Mostly it's a GC to subcontractor kind of relationship. For these GCs to find their subcontractors, get them an invitation, and all this process is worked through one interface, the bid board. Now, when you bring it up, the bid board shows you a list, kind of like ConstructConnect did. Also, you can look at it in calendar view. You can look at what I like about the bid board is you see, and this is a real bid board of what I am chasing right now. So certain things will be grayed out because I don't want my competitors to know what I'm chasing. But I wanted to give you an idea of what the jobs looks like, even if you can't read the details of it. So what is undecided, what I've accepted, and actually I've actually accepted a lot more than that, but for the purposes of this, it's just showing one. What I've submitted, what I've won, there again, you won't see all those details. But you see the name of the job. If it's been assigned, you see, in this case, you see my picture on it. When it's due, the project size, where it's located, and of course the company name, any tags you put onto it. And there's buttons here for bidding or declining right there. You can decide right then and there, decline. Now, and we're going to get more into that. So, building connected to me is for what I do in the commercial and large retail and industrial. Building connected is number one. ConstructConnect probably number two. Dodge Reports, which is now I think called Dodge Data and Analytics, that's more in the area I used to be in, which was government open bid kind of work. They own that space. If you chase government contract work, city, state, county, federal, they own that space. They work with a lot of those agencies to get that work out there. Whether you're a general contractor or a specialty contractor, that's how you'll see a lot of the Dodge stuff. And back in the day when I was chasing DOT work, we stayed in Dodge. I mean, that's where most of our leads came from. So other ways you might get uh, plans or invitations, uh, maybe through a service which is also an AutoCAD product called PlanGrid. Now, PlanGrid is a plan sharing mechanism, so people can share plans with others. And the reason you might get it through PlanGrid, let's say a GC has the job already negotiated or they started it, and they're looking for subcontractors. A lot of them like using PlanGrid. So they may send you a link to share something in PlanGrid. Now, PlanGrid is a paid service. I don't think they have anything free anymore, but it's not real expensive. So you could start out with a small subscription on PlanGrid, and they would share those plans with you, and that's how you would get them. There's a lot of means, a lot of ways to share plans out there, and PlanGrid is just another one, but it's got a pretty good presence in the construction space. planHub, and it sounds like PlanGrid, but planHub is more like ConstructConnect or Building Connected, and what I see with them is they're retail centric and small commercial. When I used to use them regularly when I was with a different company, I would get a ton of retail space work, a ton of small commercial work. They really, I think they're kind of a low entry uh, point as far as cost for some of these smaller GCs. So a lot of these smaller GCs will use them for their trades, and it's a good process. Works a lot of the same way. If you learn one of them, it doesn't take you long to learn one of the others. Procore. Procore is probably going to be your biggest challenge to learn. Um, I will tell you that if you get invited to Procore, accept the invitation because someone's serious about having you work with them if they're inviting you into Procore, because they have to pay, a GC has to pay for Procore. You usually don't, but the GC does. So if you're being invited in, you're in serious contention, or you may have actually been selected to get this job. So you're going to have to learn Procore because Procore is another way the GCs may share plans and specifications with you. And it's also a mechanism, it's a total construction umbrella type of tool for the GC to manage the RFIs, the submittals, the punch lists, and so forth. And if you don't know what an RFI stands for Request for Information. That's where people like you are asking a question to the GC on something involving a plan and specification, and it's managed. And this program, Procore, does a really good job of managing all those submittals and RFIs, meetings, schedules, photos, drawings. It's a total management tool for construction, and it's probably the hottest thing out there right now. I see it a lot. I'm a member. I can't tell you how many GCs have invited me to Procore over the last few years, but it's a lot. So my recommendation is to go to YouTube, and Procore and several other people have videos out there teaching you how to use Procore and to manage, get around on that interface. It's not the easiest thing in the world to understand. It's not as easy as these bid services like ConstructConnect or Building Connected. You need help learning how to get around in Procore, and YouTube's probably the best way. That's why you're here today, to learn things from YouTube. All right. So we talked about the bid services, how that's most likely, if you're any size contractor, you're going to get a substantial number of invitations through bid services. If they come in through an email direct with a link, well, you probably already know what to do with that. You're going to open that link and you're going to view the plan, download the plan, whatever you need to do. But basically, it's pretty straightforward, and each person may send you, there's all kinds of services out there in the cloud, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, I think Microsoft SharePoint. I mean, any number of ways people can share a file with you. And it's usually you get the file, you download the file, you look at the file, you decide whether you're going to bid it. The services are a little bit more complex and a little less personal. They're sending that out to everybody. You may be one of 5 electrical contractors they've sent this invitation to, but you still have a responsibility to respond to that invitation. So just remember, just because it's coming through a service doesn't mean you can ignore it. Ignoring invitations to bid will lead to one dismal failure: you not being invited back again. I promise you, if someone invites you to bid something, you need to respond to it. Just don't let it lay there and expire. Respond to it. If you can't bid it, tell them you can't bid it. If you can explain why, a lot of people understand that. People are busy, their lives are busy, construction crews are busy. But always respond to an invitation to bid. All right. So now you're getting these invitations to bid. What do you do with them? You need to manage them. And one of the easiest ways to manage them is to simply, and we're back in our email, is to simply create a calendar or use the calendar you already have. And let's say you've got a bid that's due on the 10th. So I say ABC gas station, and it's from XVE Builders. I just leave it as an all-day event and hit save. Now, ABC gas station is due on the 10th, right? Okay, today's the 4th. I got time. So it's that simple. Organize your bid, create a bid calendar. Now, I'm using the calendar it's on. I'm not really using this calendar at all, but I could create a separate bid calendar. And that's what I recommend. Create a separate calendar that you show, and you can just be in that and nothing else. Not like, oh, I got to pick up my kid from school today. No, a bid calendar. Create a bid calendar, and anything you anticipate that you're going to bid, go ahead and put it on the calendar. Because if you decide later on that you're not going to bid that, well, look, it's gone, isn't it? So create a calendar and then use the coloring to maybe prioritize bids. And also, when you've sent something in, I will change the color to another. I won't delete it. I'll change the color to another color, showing that I've bid that work. And if I have one that is basically, uh, let's say, just type anything in here. Let's say that moves. I just now drag it to another day. So a bid calendar in Google or Microsoft Office is a great way to organize your bids. Now, there's other ways to do it, but I'm saying starting out, and we're talking about you're becoming a construction estimator, this is a good way to get started with it. Use a calendar view. That way you always know when something is due and it doesn't get ahead of you or you get behind it. So, The nice thing about Google, if you use Google on it, that it's easy to use on a mobile device. So if you do something in Google at your work and it's a work email, chances are you can get it on your phone, and something comes in, you can easily put that in your calendar. You don't have to wait to get back to the office. So you use Microsoft Office only at work. Well, not quite as easy, but you can still do it. I kind of mentioned this before. You need to always respond to an information to bid. Now, you see some codes up here that we talked about before. Yes, I'll bid all codes. No, I won't bid this job. Click here to view the project. Now, I always recommend you looking at the project before you respond to something, at least have an idea. But just remember that these general contractors, assume it's a general contractor, are sending you things at their cost and their time. So when you don't respond to an invitation or bid, it's basically sending you down a death spiral with them. Sooner or later, you'll stop getting invitations from that contractor if you're not responding. So even if you have to give them a lame excuse, some excuse is better than no excuse. And any response is better than no response. So make sure you look at the plans and know the scope before you accept, because it's really kind of not to say you can't change your mind later. I've changed my mind on jobs like, wow, I've seen the site conditions. We can't do this job. That happens. But for the most part, don't accept a job you've not looked at, because then going back and saying, nah, I changed my mind on it, that doesn't make you look very professional. Um, Services like Building Connected can be used to manage other ITBs, or information to bids. So let's go into Building Connected, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Which one is it? Here. You see the services add bid invite, track bid invites from outside Building Connected. When you set up Building Connected, they'll give you an email address. And let's click on that now. And you can forward an invite from some other mechanism. It could be another bid service. It could be just an email. And you can forward that to the bid board here, so you manage it all in one place. Now, I still recommend you have your own bid calendar, but if you want to manage all your proposals in one place and you've got other team members you're sharing this information with, this is a great way to do it. This is the way I do it at work. Something comes in from another service or an email direct, I forward it to my bid board. It's the same email address every time. Once you do it once, chances are your email will remember that. And you just forward it, and you manage it right here. You may still have to send your proposal separately outside of Building Connected, but there's a way to do it through Building Connected if you want to do everything. So you do have a one-stop shop for managing all your quotes if you wanted to. And if you pay for Building Connected, which I think you have to do to use this portion of it, it's definitely worth your time. And I won't go into how in doing that right now, because we're going to do that later on towards the end of the course, where we're talking about getting out the proposal, and we're going to be using a lot of services for that when we get out the proposal. All right, look before you leap. My next talking point. Most of the services allow you to download plans before. I'm sorry, take that back. Most of these services allow you to preview plans before you download them. Building Connected, ConstructConnected, a lot of them will, when you click on a plan, it'll come up on the screen, and you can view it to some degree right there and decide whether that's for you or not, and go through all the plans and maybe decide that you're not bidding on this job. You've looked at the plans, nothing for you, decline and move on to the next one. But because these plans on large projects can be sometimes hundreds of sheets, it's not practical to download hundreds of sheets every time you just want to look at a plan. So if the plans are separated by discipline, and we kind of talked about that before, architectural, structural, civil, sometimes the mechanical packages are in the architectural, sometimes they're separated out. Look for your discipline, look at those plans, If those look like something that you need to download, then download them. And after you've downloaded them and viewed them, then you can accept or decline the bid invitation. Don't download a whole plan set unless you really need to. They can take up a huge amount of space on your PC, and it just before you know it, you've crashed your computer, and that isn't good. Know how the plans are grouped. So let's see if we can go on the one here that I think we already opened. And we'll go to the files. Now this one is just a full set, so it's not a good idea. But if we go into my, let's see, give me a second here. Okay. Know how the plans are grouped. You may get a civil set. They may have separated out a civil set or an architectural set, a structural set, a mechanical set, and then mechanicals would be the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing. Know your discipline and just go to those sets. I mean, that's what you're looking for first. There may be other plans that are applicable to your work, but the first thing is if there's no electrical work for you and you're an electrician, boom, decline, move on. You don't need to look at the civil plans if what you do is in-house wiring, right? So know your disciplines so you're only downloading the plans that are applicable to you. And in our next episode, plans and specifications, that'll become a lot clearer. Next, and this is probably the most important and the last talking point of the episode today, set aside time each day for reading through your ITBs. You're going to get most of your ITBs via some kind of email notification, whether it's a plan attached to it, or click here to download a plan, or an invitation through a bid service. My regiment is going through them in the morning and then populating my bid calendar for things. I'm like, I need to look at this one. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the bid calendar so it doesn't get past me. And then later on, if I need to take it off or move it or whatever, that's fine. But I spend 1 to 2 hours each day reading through ITBs, usually in the morning, managing my day, and then the afternoons is usually spent just with sheer takeoff and pricing. I try to get everything out of my way, phone calls and other things out of my way. So after lunch, until the time I leave, I am pushing it through. I am hitting the floor. I'm whatever you want to call it. I am taking off and pricing and putting together quotations. My morning is for organizing, and that's where I recommend you work on your ITBs and managing your bid calendar. Note down the day and time that a bid is due, because not all bids are due at the end of the day. Sometimes they'll be due at 12 noon. Most general contractors will allow you some amount of lenience if you're late. If it was due at 12 and you get it there at 1 or 2, they'll still accept it. Others, if they ask you for it on one day and you don't get it for 2 days later, it may have been closed out. You may be gone, and you may have just angered that general contractor, like, oh, thank you for sending me this 2 days later. I've already submitted my price to the owner. So try not to miss the bid date. And if you need more time, simply ask for more time. A lot of times they'll tell you, oh, it's due on a Friday, and they're not turning it in until the next Wednesday. So they'll say, well, as long as you can get it to me by Monday morning, first of business, 8 a.m. or something, you'd be surprised how often I've gotten something extended because I just can't make it in time. Look to see whether the invitation to bid has a site visit. Things like ConstructConnect and especially Building Connect actually have a space on that first page that shows you, and see if we can go back to it. Let's see. Go back to overview. Date due, job walk, and that's the same thing as a site visit is job walk. And it may be mandatory, it may not. Very important you know the difference. If it's just a recommended job walk and you can't attend, usually it's not an issue. If it's a mandatory job walk, it may disqualify you from turning in a price if you don't attend. You need to know whether a job walk is mandatory. So if you see a date on that, try to get someone to attend. It's always a good sales point to be in front of your client, shake hands, and so he can show you the work. If you can't be there, then ask for photos if they're not supplying photos in the file section, or if they haven't. A lot of times they have photos. Someone has photos and they can send you photos. Photos is not always a replacement for seeing the job on site, but a lot of times they can save your bacon. So don't forget about a possible site walk and see if you can attend or have someone there attending for you that can take pictures and make notes. That pretty much completes our course today on invitations to bid. Now, this will play into all the other courses that we do, but this is the start. The invitation to bid is where this process starts. If you're not getting an invitation to bid, you're probably not bidding the job. Invitations to bid is the start, and it's where you can either plan for success or plan for failure. That's up to you. You want to pay attention to your invitations to bid. That is what's going to drive the revenue to your company. So, on the next, let's go ahead and go to it. Where was I? All right. On the next episode is plans and specifications, and we went a little bit long today on it because the invitations bid is there's a broad course. Plans and specifications are going to be the meat and potatoes of estimating. That is where you find your scope of work. So it won't be a short episode. These episodes range depending on the topic. So I'm sorry if these things go long. I'll always try to make it less than an hour. Somewhere between a half hour and an hour is probably what most of these episodes will be. If I'm going longer or actually went longer, I'll let you know right up front that this is going to be a longer episode. That way we can plan chapters into it and you can watch it as you have time. But the next episode is going to be pretty intense because that leads up to a two-part episode reading blueprints. Because if you can't read blueprints, you can't do takeoff. It's that simple. So we'll see you next time for episode 2, Plans and Specifications.